everybody, welcome to today's Teaching Kitchen. I'm Sarah DeFreitas. I'm a registered dietitian with UREST, and today I have the very talented Chef Chris.
Yep, I'm Chris Osment, chef at UREST or TD Ameritrade, and today we're going to talk a little bit about different types of squash.
Right, and so this is squash, right?
Yes, it is.
So what's this?
It's also squash.
But what about this?
It's also another squash.
Whoa. Can you teach us and show us basically how to prep and prepare and how to utilize all these different squashes?
I can.
Fantastic.
All right. So our traditional squashes that we have our summer squashes, zucchini, yellow squash. Those are not as hardy as your normal fall, winter squashes, like your butternut squash, your spaghetti squash, or your acorn squash. Each one is a little different in texture, flavor, and how they are presented and how you can prepare them. So we'll start with the butternut squash. If you take a look at this guy, he's got I don't know if you can hear that, but it's pretty hardy, pretty sound.
Yeah, Chef, I have actually tried to prepare this before, and I feel like I need to be a strong man to be able to just chop it and cut it.
Well, you don't need to be a strong man to cut it. All you got to do is soften it up. There's several different ways to soften up a butternut squash to make it easier to cut if you don't feel comfortable on just cutting right into it, because it is a little dangerous to do that, because without proper safety techniques like a very sharp knife, cut gloves, which I am wearing right now, and a decent steady cutting board that's not going to move on you, it can be very dangerous. So what we'll do, which I've already done, is we will steam it for a little bit, and by a little bit it'll depend on how long you have, but you can take a regular size baking dish pan and put a little water in there, probably about an inch, and then let it roast in the oven covered with aluminum foil for about 15 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees, depending on your oven temperature and how everything is.
Gotcha. And I assume also the size of the squash.
Yes.
The larger the squash, the longer it might take.
Correct. The bigger the squash, the hardier it is, the longer it will take. Now there's two different things you can do for it. You can either go for just being able to peel it or for a full cook. If you're going for just peeling it, it may take between that 10 and 15 minute mark, but if you're going for a full cook, probably about 20 to 25 minutes in the steam. So I prefer not to steam it all the way through. I like to have it where it's ready to be peeled, but that's up to your choice. So
when you peel it, what do you use to peel it?
Well, you wouldn't use a regular vegetable peeler. The skin is just way too tough.
Okay.
So one of the things that I personally do and that I recommend doing is to take and soften it and then use a paring knife like so, and then just go down the sides. You can stand it up or put it on its side and just follow it down and around. Another safety measure that you can do if you don't feel comfortable with standing it up is flatten off one side of it, and then you have it on its side, and then you can take and cut it in half like so. And you got a smaller portion and another smaller portion. That way you can just follow it down and around.
That makes it a lot more manageable. And the other thing I really like by using the smaller paring knife is you're able to kind of reduce the waste of the food. You're able to be more exact and more precise with your peeling so that there's less waste of the actual squash.
Correct. And so with it being softer, what I'll do now is I'll take my chef knife. I'd like a 10-inch chef knife. Use whatever you're comfortable with. That way you get your feel and everything like that. So with it on its side, I'm going to hold it with my knuckles against the knife and then start very slowly to press down and go through, and then just gently go through it. And then you'll see the seeds that are left and open, and we'll want to save those, rinse those, and then we can roast them into a nice delicious snack, which I have some done up here. I don't know if we can see that. But.
So basically, just like pumpkin seeds, most squash seeds can be utilized similar to pumpkin by being roasted and seasoned for a nice crunchy snack.
Correct.
Awesome.
So, and then to get the seeds out, you'd traditionally use a spoon. Sometimes I like to use a fork just because of how stringy it is. But you just go through and work around. And you see how easy that is?
And do you have any tips on how to separate the seed from the strings?
One of the easiest methods that I've found is to take the fork, set the seeds down on the cutting board, and kind of just work it out slowly. It's the easiest way I've found, but I know there's hundreds of different ways to do things. So
Maybe some of your favorite ways could be small children and giving them an activity of separating the seeds out from the strings.
correct. All right. And so once you get this guy seeded, cleaned, everything like that, then we get into the fun part, the part of getting it ready to be eaten. It's ready to be eaten right now as it's already cooked and ready to go, but that's where we can add some different seasonings, some different flavors, and just kind of spice it up a little bit, because who likes plain, boring stuff?
I mean, it definitely needs some great seasonings, especially, you know, if maybe you're a butternut squash lover, but maybe other people in your family haven't tried it yet. So kind of utilizing different flavor profiles might actually help entice people to try it. You know I love it in soup, and I love it when it's cubed up and seasoned with maybe some brown sugar and cinnamon, but also it can be a great starch component. Like maybe instead of having rice in your meal, you can use chopped up seasoned butternut squash.
One of the great things is, me and my fiance, she loves squash, and to spice it up to not just get on the dull drag stuff, I've actually come up with a pumpkin spice butternut squash style mashed potato. It's not mashed potatoes, it's butternut squash. You whip it, you season it with brown sugar, and then we top it off with some toasted marshmallows just to finish it and give it that extra love.
Wow, watch out, Starbucks. We got butternut squash. PSL, pumpkin spice butternut squash. Love it.
Exactly. And so butternut squash is one of your more resilient, most known ones, but we got a couple others. We got acorn, and we also have spaghetti squash. So there's a different way of doing things. If you feel muscular and feel like cutting the squash in half, you can roast it or steam it like so. I roasted this one with the seeds in because, you know, why not? You get a little bit of a heartier flavor into the squash itself, but who's to say that that's what you want? So it's your option to de-seed it or not beforehand. But once you get to this stage, then you can also peel it as well and cube it and dice it. But one of the things that we can do with the squash, instead of peeling it with a knife, we can also scoop it out. Now that it's soft and ready to go, you just take a spoon. You can use a regular tablespoon, kitchen spoon, whatever you feel like, and just kind of follow the skin. And it'll be a little brittle, the skin will, but you just follow it around, and then you can just scoop in and take that, and then you'll get most of the skin off, and then you can just trail it down like so if you don't feel comfortable with a knife. It's another option, and there's many of options, but then you got your pieces that you can dice up, roast, fire grill, smoke even if you want to go a little more adventurous. But you can do all that, and then same thing with the oven roasted. If you're just going to do a straight oven roast, rub it with a little oil, season it with your salt, pepper, whatever seasonings you really like.
Sure.
And then from there, you can roast it for, I'd say, probably about 20 to 25 minutes uncovered, and it will bring out a little bit more of the caramelized flavors from the sugars in the squash.
So, Chef, if I wanted to make this more of my main feature in my meal, I can't help but notice it makes the perfect bowl. So,
Correct.
Can you give us any ideas of what we could put into the squash to kind of make this cool, like, whole meal in an acorn squash?
Well, why not do butternut? You could do a squash soup. You could do a chili, which is a little more different, but it'll add in a vegetable, and it'll be a little heartier and not as much protein. So you can actually eat through there and use it as a bread bowl, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've even seen chefs use maybe some sausage stuffing. So around the holidays, this could be a really great, beautiful entree feature.
Correct. And you could also put pork loins, things like that, and get it set up, roast it. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. And then our next player in the game is our spaghetti squash. Spaghetti squash, I don't know if you know this, gets its name because of its structure. So it's stringier than butternut squash and acorn squash. So, with that being said, what do you think is going to happen if I take this fork and run it down there?
Well, if I'm using some context clues, I'm guessing you're going to be able to maybe pull some noodles out of there almost like.
Maybe. Well, let's see. Oh man.
What do you
Oh,
want?
look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
That is so easy, and I always hear and see people utilizing spaghetti squash, and I've always just assumed that it was too difficult for me to really be able to even do it.
All right. So now that we harvested our spaghetti squash, we'll bring it up so that you can take a look.
It really does look like spaghetti for sure.
Mhm.
It's a great natural, squash is a carbohydrate, so any type of squash will be considered as carbs. However, if you're looking for a more natural, carb component to your meal, so maybe instead of purchasing pasta, this kind of has a more natural, veg-forward component to pasta versus doing it traditionally.
Correct. And it's also a vegan or vegetarian option if you prefer to have that as a substitute for your noodles or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I assume, so of course I'm sure it's great served warm with maybe marinara and all that stuff, but also could you serve it cold or?
Oh, definitely. Yes, you can season it up, as we were saying, with your just regular seasoning, salt, pepper, oil, or you can roast it up, chill it back down, and it'll give it another roasted flavor, and you can use it in your salads or even as a topping on top of one of your other dishes that you have already.
Yeah, and I noticed, Chef, that from the one half that you got all of this from, so if you guys are looking for what the serving size, maybe you're cooking for a family of 4, it looks like you get about 1 serving per half of that spaghetti squash. So just to give you an idea of how much you should purchase at the grocery store, depending on how much you're preparing.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, that really sounds all great. Now, Chef, I noticed that you have some marshmallows and really fun and sweet toppings. What's the deal? I thought we were eating vegetables, not candy.
Oh, that's the great part about this. Squash is similar to pumpkin in a lot of ways. So, my personal mentality is, why not have it as a dessert?
Yeah.
So, I made some pistachio brittle that once you get done roasting, you can either serve it warm or cold, and mix in a little cream with it, and then top it with the pistachio brittle or the marshmallows, or even just some other nuts or something to give it a little bit more of a balance forward. It's a great dessert. You can even bake with it. You can put butternut squash, make flan, creme brulee, any type of custard with it, and you won't be disappointed.
Well, Chef, I wish I could be that talented, but I'm going to start off with the basics, with being able to peel it and cook it, and then I might get to your level soon.
Sounds good. I'll be waiting for you.
Yeah. Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed this. We hope that this really encourages you to try some different squashes this season. We just think that it's a fabulous time of year with some really great flavors and just really exciting and fun to share with your family and friends.